Hello, everybody, and welcome to Merlin Reviews, where we discuss the magic of movie making and storytelling in general. I'm your host, Merlin, and today we're going to be talking about the film Tenet. Yes, I saw a movie in 2020. This is like one of like four or five? Basically, I haven't really seen a lot of movies this year because of what's been going on, but this is one that was recommended very strongly more than any other one. Two people, old film fanatics buddies Dan and Justin, both recommended this movie to me. So I said, what the heck, I'll check it out. Justin was nice enough to let me borrow it. So I kind of watched it the other day and sat on it for a day and said, you know what, I'll make a video about it and let you guys know my thoughts. Tenet is a movie by Christopher Nolan, and it stars John David Washington, who is Denzel Washington's son, who I didn't know he had a son, and I didn't know his son was an actor. And he was very good in this, so that was actually a pretty great surprise. I could see a little bit of little moments when he spoke or when he kind of looked a certain way. I'm like, I see a bit of Denzel Washington, hear a little bit of Denzel Washington, but still very much his own acting style and his own type of performance, especially for this role. I was very impressed with him in this movie, and I really liked the protagonist he played, actually. Also stars Robert Pattinson, who people probably knew back in the day primarily from the Twilight films, and I feel like got kind of a bad rap for a number of years because of that. But last couple of years, he's been doing a lot of different roles, a lot of indie projects. Movie that came out in 2019, The Lighthouse, I actually really liked it with him and Willem Dafoe. He's a really talented actor, and I guess now he's getting some more high-profile stuff. I know he's going to be obviously doing the Batman movie coming up, and he's doing a movie now with Christopher Nolan with Tenet, so this is pretty big for him. It also stars Elizabeth Debicki, I think that's how you pronounce it, who I didn't really recognize, but I realized after I checked it that I've seen her in a few other things. She was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. She was the leader of that one, that race of golden people that the Guardians stole something from, and she was also in The Great Gatsby, though I don't really remember who she was in that. And the villain is Kenneth Branagh, the great Kenneth Branagh, from his various acting and directing of Shakespearean things and other things as well, like Thor and whatnot. So pretty great that we have Kenneth Branagh as the villain in this one. Basically, it stars John David Washington as the protagonist, as he's simply known, who is the CIA operative, I guess, who is assigned to stop this bad guy from destroying the world, that using a device that can alter the flow of time through specific objects. So kind of interesting concept, cool sci-fi concept that Nolan likes to play with, very similar to some of his other films, like, Prestige had a bit of a supernatural element, and of course Inception and Interstellar. So kind of playing with some of those ideas, but with his own style, making something really big in scope with kind of a big concept, but still keeping it very grounded in something that we can all kind of see and relate to in some way. Not getting too fantastical with the visuals. It's still kind of straightforward. Well, I want to say right now, some of the things that I really liked about the movie, probably one of the best things about it was, well, just the visuals in general. Like I said, it's got that Nolan look where, he really knows how to use the camera, and his cinematography people really helped him with that for sure. Just really tight, crisp visuals, but like I said, kind of that's something that Nolan does quite well, and I think a lot of people have emulated that, basically trying to kind of make these big epic scope films with a lot of these grand shots, but using realistic imagery. So it's very grounded but very epic at the same time, which is something that's very specific to Nolan, and he's had some emulators, but that's very much his thing. That's probably one of the best things about the movie, which I'll talk a little bit more about the details as well with the concept of the time travel stuff. But it's basically a tight spy thriller, high-paced, action-oriented, thrilling spy sort of movie, espionage movie, but with that kind of time travel element sort of thrown in there to spice it up. Like, it reminded me, like, this could have really been like a Bourne movie or Mission Impossible, just with that little bit of Nolan flair, is really what it was. So if you took that out, it still would have really been a tight, fun, intense movie. It could have just been like a disease or a bomb instead of the time travel device thing, and it still would have functioned very, very similarly. But really going further into the strengths of it, just some, in addition to the cinematography, the editing was really, really great. Basically, I kind of joked, I wasn't always as impressed with every single shot, because after a while I kind of felt like it really is kind of just the reversed footage movie. And there was just kind of a lot of that there. And I'm thinking, well, a lot of people use that effect. It's cool. But the most impressive thing about it with the cinematography and the editing. It's how they kind of use those different frames of things going backwards or something, reversed frames and reversed footage, but also in sync with other characters that aren't in footage. And when he's supposed to be inverted and actually going into a different time space, that those scenes were very well executed and cool. I'm like, well, okay, that's pretty cool how they did that, and I could definitely imagine seeing this in the theaters would bring out some of those visuals. So if you got a chance to see it in theaters, that's great. I'd say definitely view it on a big screen. I have a decent sized TV, but it's not gigantic. But I thought about maybe I'll watch it on my computer. I'm like, no, at least give it like a decent sized screen. So recommend showing that. Yeah, so it definitely probably cool in theaters. I also really, really liked the soundtrack. I think that in addition to the visuals, the performances were also very good as well. Nolan gets great performances out of his actors, like I said. But I think that aesthetically, technically, my favorite thing about the movie was actually the soundtrack. The soundtrack was really good, and I don't think it was Hans Zimmer this time. I didn't notice as much of the Brahm. Maybe it was, but if it was him, it was not that same classical, heavy, booming sound we have in a lot of these Nolan movies. It was very electronic, kind of more akin to a lot of spy thrillers, some kind of industrial sounds there, some more ambient noise, and a kind of like an alternative hip hop vibe to a lot of it. I really liked it. The soundtrack was one of the things to really get me pumped up, which Nolan's very good at using movies in conjunction. He's very good at using movies, yes. He's very good at using music with the visuals to kind of sell the emotions of the story. So that's a strength Nolan's always had that I thought really was not that predictable in this one, which I really liked. I also really liked the characters. Mostly, I liked the protagonist. I liked the fact that he was a very tough character, but you got the sense that he really cared about his job, and you really felt that he was a good person, even though we don't know much about him. And one of the best things about him specifically that I liked was that he went out of his way to try not to kill anybody that was innocent. Like he would, and that was something they kind of established early on in the film. Was in that opening scene where they're trying to rescue this person who's going to be assassinated when there's this terrorist attack, and his teammates are like, it's not our mission to go back there and save these people. And it's like, well, it's my mission now. Like he can't leave knowing that these people could be endangered. So that was kind of a sort of the little sign, I guess, for the test for him to get inducted into this special group. And it's really cool that everybody in the group doesn't really know pieces of it. There's a lot of trust going on there, so you're not 100% sure who to trust. There could be some pretentious elements there a little bit, like obviously he's called the protagonist. And there is some of the heavy-handed themes about humanity there that we see in a lot of the Nolan stuff. A lot of things they're going for that you kind of understand, like with Interstellar or Inception or The Dark Knight even, where the characters kind of spout the themes of the film and the motivations of their character, and subtlety kind of goes out the window. There's a little bit of that here, but it's definitely dialed back a lot. There's a couple lines here, but they're fine. They're perfectly fine for this because they're not overdoing it, and I think that might have had something to do with the script not being done by his brother. So I think he might be responsible for some of the more heavy-handed, possibly more pretentious moments. But I thought these were fine. It seemed like he was actually poking fun of himself a little bit. Like that might be one aspect of the movie that I kind of disliked a little bit, was that the whole concept was interesting about the reversing entropic effect of different physical objects. That rule, like even when they first introduced it, they don't really come out and explain it that clearly. So I had to think about it and wasn't sure I completely understood it, because I'm not a physics person. I'm not really a science person, but I kind of got the idea. And then I just realized, well, it's basically just a time travel movie with kind of this wonky element for visuals, because it's still going back, to different points in time and working and crossing different paths of different people at different points. So it's stuff we've seen in a lot of time travel movies before, just with kind of a weird, unique element that's presented well, which is cool. But I realized that it's like a lot of the other things in some of his other movies. You've got this initial concept the film is built around, but don't worry about explaining it too much, because he's not that worried about it. Because he even at one point the protagonist asked Robert Pattinson, like, how do we know that this didn't work, or it did work, because we're here now in the past. And he's like, well, I don't know. There's for sure we could be optimistic. Like, what do you think? Well, we don't know about like consciousness, awareness of multiple universes or whatever. And I'm like, that seems like an unrelated thing. So clearly, it's kind of poking fun of itself a little bit. So don't worry too much about the rules. It's basically just a time travel movie with some of those beats you've seen before, which I will admit that it, like I said, it was presented cool, and for the most part, it kept me interested. But towards like that 2 hour mark, I was kind of starting to feel the length a little bit, and I also realized there were a couple things, like I didn't predict everything, and there were definitely things that I was wondering about that kept me invested. But there were a couple of things because it's a time travel movie that, and I've seen quite a few of them. I was like, okay, I kind of predicted that this person sees this person. I wonder who that could be. Or, he took off this thing and saw somebody. I wonder who that could be. Or even the ending. Who was he working for the whole time? I'm like, yeah, I kind of called a lot of those big moments because the foreshadowing also wasn't very subtle with them. Maybe that wasn't supposed to be, but maybe, like I said, I'll try to keep it spoiler free, so maybe you'll be surprised. Like, it's not super obvious, but I called a lot of things, and I usually don't. I like to try and be surprised, but I did call quite a few of them. Also, Kenneth Branagh's accent, his Russian accent is kind of bad. Like, or is it a good Russian accent? I don't know, but it sounds basically like this, and I, it's just it's like I am evil Russian man, and he's doing that accent he did in that Jack Ryan movie a couple years ago, and I was just like, Kenneth Branagh is like the Shakespearean trained actor director, and it's fine, it's serviceable, but it comes off like a little bit cheesy. And I guess if it's harkening back to old spy movies, I don't know if it's intentional or not. 'Cause he's supposed to be kind of a menacing, sort of complex villain. Like, he's an interesting villain. He really is. They kind of take this why is he doing what he's doing? It's actually for kind of a kind of relatable reason. Once again, Nolan kind of taking a big idea and condensing it down to something that we could all kind of relate to was interesting. But he just his accent is just it's just a little bit cheesy, and I was like, I'm surprised that's the route they went for. Like, he could have just been a British guy, and it would have been fine. Like, I don't know why they had to make him Russian. I guess because of how it relates to how he found the plutonium and with the device. I guess, but I think he could have still been a British guy, and it would have been fine. But that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I think Tenet is a pretty good movie. Actually, I really do. I think I preferred it. I don't know if I think that the visuals are the best we've ever seen Nolan do. Like, even though I had issues with Interstellar, the visuals in that movie and the music were spectacular. So I don't think it's quite on that level of Interstellar, or even some of the Dark Knight movies. Like, Dark Knight Rises had great cinematography and stunt work too. Also, I do appreciate that Nolan does. I don't really say this too often, but because I know I have mixed feelings about a lot of his movies, but I really do appreciate that Nolan. He does use CGI in his movies, I'm sure, but he is really one of the few people that is still using practical effects on a big scale and managing to put the time and money into that. And I really do want to commend him for a lot of that stuff, as well as all the music people, the editors, the visual effects people. Really, a lot of that stuff. I really appreciate a lot of that, and I wanted to kind of tip my hat off to everybody that worked on the production of this film, especially from the technical aspects. But yeah, I don't know if it's quite as good in terms, like, I think the visuals in Interstellar were really awesome. And I also I kind of liked how in Inception, though I have mixed feelings about the movie, one thing I did like is how it did kind of go to great lengths to build up a lot of rules so you could follow along with them. And it was complicated, but you could kind of follow it, and then they sort of broke it anyway. But whatever, that was thematic, I suppose. But at least they took the time to do that. This one, it's like, we've got an idea, kind of explain how it works, and just accept it and go with it and say it's a time travel movie and you'll be fine. So there wasn't quite as much attention to the sci-fi hook as there was in, say, something like Inception, which I thought was a little bit of a detriment to it, but very minor. Very minor. I think that it's probably, I liked it better than Interstellar, and I think I might have even liked it certainly better than The Dark Knight Rises, or maybe even better than Dunkirk, because I actually liked the characters a bit more in this one. I felt like I knew them more. I still think that I probably like some of the earlier Batman ones better. Maybe like Inception a little better. I think it might feel about the same. This one was a little more straightforward in some ways, but also not as much of a big cast. There weren't as many big Christopher Nolan people associated with it. Michael Caine shows up like once. There's a guy that's kind of a discount Tom Hardy, but yeah, he was pretty good too. But overall I thought it was pretty good. There were some good twists, some things to keep you guessing. You're not really sure what exactly is going on, and it kind of slowly draws you in. So there was some decent writing there, some good direction for sure. Really good performances, especially from the lead, John David Washington. I don't think I've seen him in anything, but He and Pattinson are really good. So is this Elizabeth Debicki. Everybody does a really good job with that, of course. Good performances. I was originally thinking, like, okay, maybe if I saw this in theaters, it might have been like an A minus. But the thing about it is, going by the Film Fanatics grades, but I've noticed that with Christopher Nolan movies, I tend to really like them at first. I mean, Dark Knight Rises, Inception, Interstellar. Like, I liked all these movies a bit more. I think Interstellar I had some issues with, but I liked them all like a lot. If I saw them in theaters, I was like blown away by the visuals and the emotions and the stuff that is done really well. But usually when you think more about it over time, I tend to have more issues with the Nolan movies, which is kind of a running joke, which I do think is true. When you really like pick them apart from a plot perspective, and I feel like with Tenet this could happen, but this one I felt like was more of an experience, which I appreciate, and it's so well done technically, and some great performances, and the core story's fine. So I would say this is probably like a B plus right now for me. If it was in theaters, maybe an A minus, which I don't know what Dan gave it, but I feel like it's probably in that range. With the length, maybe it could go down to a B, but this is still like a solid movie, and there really wasn't anything majorly wrong with it. I thought it was overall pretty good, pretty fun. I would recommend seeing it, especially if you're a fan of Nolan. Check it out at some point. That you'll definitely won't be disappointed in that. And even if you don't, I think that if you like spy thrillers or just cool sci-fi, there's some good stuff here. Some cool visuals, cool editing, great music, good performances, some interesting philosophical ideas. So pretty serviceable stuff. I think this is going to be the conclusion of this video. So a movie I reviewed in 2020, one of like a few. So hopefully I'll get to do more of these. If you like this format, maybe I'll try and include more videos of this style and try to kind of beef up my editing and skills as well in terms of presenting these videos. So let me know whether or not you saw Tenet, whether or not you're interested in it or not, what you think of Nolan movies, and of course videos you'd like to see on the channel. Give me some feedback and what you're looking forward to this coming year. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening, and stay magical.